Hi everyone, and this is a very strange beginning of the video for you probably, because right now you're hearing me voicing over myself in Ukrainian, but actually we're gonna speak English the whole vid today. And we have a very special guest. His name is call sign is Zulu, and of course we have Vitaly here, which you probably know
Hi.
about. Yeah, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation about guns, of course, about foreigners serving in Ukrainian army, about experiences, and anything which is related to that. So please just tell us about yourself, you know, how come you're in Ukraine, and you know, all the details and everything else.
Sure. My name is Zulu. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and I've been here in Ukraine for 2 years. I served with the Foreign Legion for a year, and I presently work as a weapons and tactics instructor, among some other jobs that we can get into if you want to.
We will, yeah. And I remember we were spoken privately, and you said you had, you know, experiences in Afghanistan as well?
Correct.
2 times?
I was in Afghanistan twice.
Twice. And after that, you came back to US?
Mm-hmm. So I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years.
Yeah.
During that 6 years, I deployed to Afghanistan twice, came back and focused on some other work-related things within the Marine Corps, and I got out in 2014 and started teaching people how to shoot guns, concealed carry, stuff like that.
And what guns are you familiar with? Are those rifles, shotguns, handguns, grenade launchers, tanks?
Pretty much all of it. I've shot almost every weapon system that's like available through NATO, with the exception of like the Javelin and the Stinger. I've never shot those in real life, but I grew up shooting rifle. I shoot pistol, definitely shoot long range, and shotguns as well, but I have the least amount of experience with shotguns.
Right, because we have a shotgun guy here. He's a Ukrainian champion with the pump action.
Nice.
So that's why he's bringing, you know, pump action everywhere with him, just to remind everyone that it's
I don't know if I told you,
still
but I'm the
relevant. It's
champion.
still relevant, you know, that sort of thing, which it actually is probably. But anyway, so you have a huge amount of experience, like in U.S. Army, in U.S. like training things as well, which is probably very different to Ukrainian, you know, experience you have, both in terms of, you know, serving and teaching people as well. And but first of all, I mean, thank you for, you know, coming to Ukraine.
My pleasure.
Is still incredible for me to understand how a person from, you know, another part of the world just decides to go to a country. Did you know anything about Ukraine before you came?
I did, maybe a little bit more than the average person, but
How come?
still not very much.
Where from? You have relatives, friends? Or
I actually gave a history report when I was like 14 or 15 on the Holodomor.
history report?
Yeah.
Was it in school?
In school, yeah. We had to pick like tragedies of the 20th century.
Okay.
And so that was something I gave a report on.
Why did you, what was the reason you went for this subject? Any particular reason? Any relatives maybe? I don't know.
No. Seemed interesting, and I wanted to pick something in Eastern Europe. Ethnically, my family comes from like Slovenia and Hungary,
Okay.
as well as like Ireland, Germany, and the UK.
Okay. So you decided to talk about Ukraine, and then 10 years after that, you find yourself
Yep.
On Ukrainian soil,
That's right.
so to speak.
So you already knew about the conflicts of Russia and Ukraine, and have you ever thought that you are going to participate in one of them?
I never would have thought that I would be here involved in this. Yeah.
So
Happy I am.
I mean, we are happy for all the help we get, and of course, still I cannot understand how like individuals just decide to leave their family and everything else and just go. That's just not comprehensible for me at all. I can't understand that. But the overall help we get from US and we got already is just we are very grateful. I don't know how do people actually in you, because you talk to your sort of friends or relatives probably on a regular basis.
Definitely.
And it's just interesting for us right now because there's so much in the media, right now about the not enough help, about all this political stalemate and everything else. But what is the sort of the common, what you hear, what are people are saying? What is it?
Well, so the circles that I'm involved in the U.S., most everyone understands the necessity for continued help, and everyone is aligned, that Russia is just a bully and a terrorist state across the world. And so, my family, all my friends are super supportive of me being here, and most everybody sees the situation for how it is. But there's also a huge amount of misinformation, disinformation in American media, and there are people that are confused about what might happen if we don't continue to help Ukraine.
Fear of like nuclear conflict.
Yeah, anywhere from fear of, say, nuclear conflict to just thinking that, man, America should focus more on America.
Right.
And, that's really never been America's thing. We're always focused on everybody else anyway. So
that sounds a bit strange even.
Right.
We can make jokes about it, but we will probably not do that. Okay.
So let's hope that we are going to receive military help soon.
I hope so too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very, you're right that the amount of misinformation and everything else which is around there, and people cannot just find what to listen to,
right,
and what is the truth,
right,
because there is so much noise,
100%. Well, that's Russia's game. Is
this is what they do.
Fill the space with noise,
and they do it quite well. We have to acknowledge that.
So Zulu, you have huge experience in teaching people how to shoot, in tactics and everything. Have you seen Ukrainian trainings? Have you trained Ukrainian soldiers? What would you do differently, and what are the difference between tactics of the US military and what's going on here, trench warfare and a lot of artillery, airplanes and everything?
So that's a deep question to answer. I'll start by saying that the US military definitely has tactics around something like trench warfare. And for the most part, that's being fought tactically and strategically the way that it has to be fought. There's not a whole lot of room for creativity in terms of your operations with trench warfare. I have seen Ukrainian army training, and I have provided the Ukrainian military with training as well. I would say that the biggest difference in the training is how systematic it is and how organized it is. There's a definite full pipeline, whether you're in the Army or the Marine Corps, from ground zero, where you join the military, to you're ready to deploy overseas and fight. And this goes deep into some social and cultural things, but for a long time the Ukrainian military wasn't really supported by its government, by its people, and so having quality, consistent, systematic training wasn't part of the protocol. It is becoming that way now, but now we're in the middle of a war, so we have to shortcut everything that's being done.
Late, sort of.
Not too late. I'm not the only guy out here training people, so we're trying to get that training to the military and to civilians who may be joining the military in the best way we know how, as fast as possible. And the other thing is that, Ukraine is contending with years and years of Soviet doctrine and realizing, I think everybody realizes that doesn't serve them, whatever the conflict is, whether it's trench warfare or urban warfare, and slowly making those changes. But that progress is also being stifled by guys at the top of the hierarchy that are very rigid in their thinking, and it's uncomfortable to adapt to new things. So guys our age or younger are like, hey, here's how we should be doing things, and we're trying to convince guys in their 50s and 60s that this is like, we need to move on to the next thing.
That's all their life was wrong.
100%, yeah. No one wants to admit that. Like, you're fighting against the ego.
For sure.
So.
But there is like this huge problem of, like you said, there is no common training method. Mm-hmm. There is no doctrine, which is like common for everyone, and basically we have like lots of different instructors and organizations training differently or a bit differently to one another. Yeah. And do you think that's a problem as well? Do you see that a lot? Yeah.
I don't see it. I see it less now than I did
at
the beginning.
Okay.
Because there were all sorts of people that came out to Ukraine, and good on them, but not everyone was committed to providing the highest level of proven training possible. Some of these guys maybe didn't have the experience or the qualifications that they said they had, and came out here and were like teaching people things like, hey, this is the way it should be. And Ukrainians were like, okay, like tell me, like I want to learn. Yeah. And then they're being taught something that maybe isn't accurate or up to the standard that.
So self-called gurus and.
Correct.
Yes, I've seen a lot of instructors from different countries, and when instructor speaks English, then all students listen to him with open mouth and.
Great power, great responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure, because like you rightly said, the lack of training for years, for many years in Ukrainian army, and of course people just know nothing basically,
Right.
And that's one of the biggest problems. But what's interesting for me is you have like extensive experience, first of all in the Marine Corps, deployments in Afghanistan, then you've been teaching people in US. How is the Ukrainian, thing different? Did it change your perception of, teaching, or maybe some methods? Have you like changed a lot of things in your own mind about this because of the Ukrainian experience, or the core is still, basics are still the same, or not?
Yeah, so I would say that like the fundamental principles remain the same no matter who you're teaching or what the conflict is. But the opportunities I've had to instruct here in Ukraine, I think, have made me not only a better like warfighter, because I'm reviewing things, and you learn by teaching as well, reviewing things and learning that I haven't revisited, say, since I was 18 or 19 years old. So it's good to relearn these fundamental things and continue to practice them. And it's helped me develop my teaching skills and how I communicate and deliver these skills to people. Yeah, sort of helped me refine the process.
Right. And do you think, from your experience here, U.S. Army way of training, should it be changed? Is there anything what you already see, like from your experience here, that okay, back there we have this and this outdated or whatever? Is there anything like that?
In terms of like, say, specific tactics, techniques, or procedures, I can't say that there's anything that needs to be changed. Maybe this new era of drone warfare needs to be taken into account with current standard operating procedures. That'll definitely be integrated. What I can say is that the U.S. Army is presently learning a lot from the conflict here in Ukraine. And I think more than anything in the next few years, it won't be the tactics, techniques, and procedures that change. It'll be the mindset around how we conduct ourselves as military professionals that it'll change, but it'll go back to the way that it used to be. The main thing that separates NATO militaries, but specifically the U.S. military, from other militaries in the world is that there's a huge emphasis placed on decentralized leadership, being a critical thinker as an individual and being part of a larger team. And so this is one of the biggest conflicts for I think a lot of foreigners or NATO foreigners that come here to Ukraine is that the Ukrainian military, the biggest change that they could make would be to build up their, it's called an NCO, their non-commissioned officer corps, junior leadership, and empower them to make better real-time decisions tactically that still fit within the commander's intent of what they want to be done. It shouldn't matter how you do what you do as long as what you do is getting the job done. So I think the US has gotten away from this a little bit. We've become very top-heavy on the leadership, and that's the same issue that we have here in Ukraine, where guys at the bottom, our sergeants, are not really confident and empowered to make decisions on the battlefield because they're afraid of what the major is going to say if they deviate from the exact plan. I think that the U.S. will end up going back to this, and that's what really separates us and has helped us have the track record that we have in previous wars.
It's interesting that you are talking about this because the Russians, that's one of the problems Russians had,
Yes.
what been talked about from
and
the
I
very
hope they
beginning.
never fix it.
That's the inability to make decisions in the in the middle. It just all goes up there, and then it takes a lot of time to go down, and that's one of the reasons decision making is slow. And
The commander dies, and you have a whole company of guys just standing around not knowing what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Zulu, there were a lot of talks about Russian army as the second largest, the second strongest, and expectations of the U.S. analysts and expectations of their actions, and a lot of TVs and journalists told about 2-3 days to conquer Ukraine and everything. And you have seen them in action, and all the things. Are expectations met reality, or now everybody thinks that Russian army have big problems? What do you think about their actions, their strong and weak sides?
Yeah, so let me preface what I'm about to say with a classic mistake that people make with regard to their enemy is, and you see it in every war, so it's not just Ukraine, but is that underestimating your enemy or dehumanizing your enemy. And we call them everything from the P word to orcs, and that's fine. Those things are necessary to wage war against other humans. My expectations actually of the Russian army were that generally they would be as terrible as a sane person would think that they are. But there's all this talk about how strong Russia is. And so I think on one side, their performance is exactly what you would expect from a country that doesn't value human life, doesn't value free thought. Their soldiers fight like that. Now, when we're talking about special units, VDV or other guys like this, they're good. They're competent operators. Technically, they're highly proficient, but there's still a part of me that thinks that they would be better, and I'm glad that they're not, if they thought like an individual and were able to that level of individual creativity. I don't know a better word for it, but that's kind of what allows you. That's the next level in warfighting, is being a high level thinker. There's a company in the U.S. Run by a guy who's a former U.S. Marine, and the motto is "thinkers before shooters," and I like it. It's a thinking man's game. I don't know if that answered the full question or half the question.
No, it makes sense, of course. But as you said, in order to do that, you have to change the whole. Just how the whole thing is run, basically.
Right.
Without that, every individual, thought or anything else is not considered valuable.
Right.
That's a problematic person, yeah?
Yeah.
The one who is trying to, let me speak sort of thing, yeah?
He's stuck on his plan,
He's
but
the
can't
problem
hear.
now, for everyone else.
Yep.
And the same for Ukrainian army as well, like you said. But well, anyway, we can talk about the political and historical side of things for a long time, and actually we would like to do that maybe on another like podcast or video we do, if depending how the audience reacts, we don't know, to be honest. So we cannot do this all in one shooting.
Sure.
So let's go to like practical things, to guns and to stuff that you teach.
Nice.
And go down to the sort of the practicality.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of talks about basic shooters training in Ukrainian army. And what is your approach? What are the stages? How do you start training? How do you have levels, or what kind of approach?
What sort of people do you actually like take on right now? Is it like completely newbies or complete newbies?
I train everyone from people that have never held a gun in their life to people that are active duty in the military presently.
Okay, what is your starting sort of thing? What do you do at the very beginning?
So I have.
What's your method?
Yeah. I have. We're giving away all the industry secrets here. No, I'm just kidding.
Some of them.
No, I have 2 courses that I teach, and I think these are the fundamental courses for the goal. The first goal should be, like, if I just bought a rifle, my goal should be to get to a level where I'm a proficient operator of this particular tool. It's like when you buy a car, and you have to learn how to shift the gears, how the turn signal works, what the pedals do. It's the same thing that I teach in my fundamental courses with the rifle. How to manipulate the bolt, how to take the weapon on and off safe, how to send the bolt home, how to lock it to the rear, what the parts of this particular tool do. So there's a basic rifleman's course that I teach, which is works in like some fundamental tactics, like how to reload, how to hold your weapon, how to build a shooting position, how to move. And throughout all of that course, people learn how to accurately manipulate this weapon and everything that it does. And the other course I teach is fundamentals of marksmanship. And this is one of the first things that the Marine Corps teaches you when it teaches you shooting. It's all about how to build different shooting positions, how to maximize your accuracy with this rifle platform.
So even like it's interesting that even for basically for an infantryman, you have marksmanship as the core.
Foundational, yeah.
That's probably for many people in Ukraine. That's not because like marksman and the word marksmanship and everything.
Right.
It implies somebody who is like
special.
Yeah, he's already like almost a sniper or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so it's something over there, and not the basis of teaching. Yeah.
And is it marksmanship with AR-15 rifle or bolt rifle?
I teach both. The fundamentals of marksmanship course actually is designed for shooters to learn how to utilize their iron sights on the rifle. And then we'll throw collimators and magnifiers and magnified optics on the weapon system. A second part of that course, so it's a pipeline actually to become, say, a designated marksman. So I touch a little bit on mill-radian theory, angular adjustment and stuff like that. But it's generally just designed for people to learn how to use the very most basic sight that their weapon should have. If you own an AR, it should have a pair of iron sights or mechanical sights on that weapon. Collimators are battery operated, and we know electronics always fail.
That's one of the things we wanted to talk about.
I see that
next, because we basically have a red dot here. We have an LPVO behind you on the Colt, and we have another.
It's an aim point.
No, this is primary arms, but this is a prism. So this is something like in between a crossover between a red dot and LPVO, and we wanted to talk to you about how do you teach all this, and what do you think is the preferable.
By the way, I've read that Marines use iron sights for really long distances.
We used to. When I went through boot camp, you had to qualify on the M16A4 platform with mechanical sights out to ranges of 500 yards, which is something like what, 425
Well,
meters.
basically, we can call it 500 meters or whatever. Just
So yeah, there's a 3-week shooting portion in Marine Corps boot camp during the second phase where you learn how to operate the weapon system. And my Fundamentals of Marksmanship course is a condensed version of Marine Corps boot camp shooting. Yeah.
okay. And did you develop it yourself, the course itself?
Well, yes and no. I developed the course myself, but I stole a bunch of the information and teaching materials
Yeah.
straight from Marine Corps publications.
Which is good enough. you
Yeah,
know,
totally.
It works.
Why reinvent the
Why
wheel?
reinvent the wheel? Yeah.
You know?
Obviously. Okay, so basically, you consider right now like AR-15 is the go-to sort of thing for most people, and this
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the main like rifle right now.
100%.
And that's what 90% of all people coming to your courses. This is what they have. Yeah?
That's correct. Some people have come through with an AK because they don't have their own rifle yet.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. You can learn a lot of the good behaviors and habits with the AK platform, but it's not the superior weapon to wage war with by any means.
So we can start a holy war and ask you what's better,
Yeah.
AK or AR-15?
We should ask you that.
Do you want the politically correct answer or my personal opinion?
No, your personal opinion.
No
please.
questions asked. AR-15 is a better weapons platform.
Why? The main things. Accuracy or
Accuracy, comfortability, modularity, and reliability of its function. Everyone who's a
Reliability.
big
You heard that?
reliability.
AR-15 is more reliable than an AK.
Everyone loves to talk about like, oh, you could throw an AK in the mud, pick it up and shoot it. Like, have you tried it?
Which is
no, it
actually
won't.
not
It's
not
not
so
true.
true.
No,
No, it's not. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the AR objectively requires a little bit more like attention and maintenance.
Yeah.
But this is your lifeline. Like, you without your rifle are nothing if you're downrange engaged in fighting. So keep it clean.
Another question, gas piston or the DI AR-15?
A good question. My preference now is direct impingement because I ran a Daniel Defense M4 for 6 months. Stock, I think it's the best rifle that you could buy.
Okay.
Like, you could build a better rifle, but yeah, stock, it's amazing. Very low recoil, very low muzzle rise. Feels really, really comfortable when you shoot it. Yeah. But I've spent years shooting gas piston, so I mean, it's not bad.
But still DI, yeah? No.
Yeah, DI. If money was not an issue, like I would go DI, no question.
Okay. Right. And let's start with if you have a bunch of people with different kinds of optics on the AR-15, somebody comes with just not optics, open sights. How do you deal with all this when you have all these differences in front of you, different experiences as well? Do you tell them all to buy open sights and start from the beginning, or you separate them, or how do you deal with that?
When I teach fundamentals of marksmanship, this is a requirement to have. You need to bring
this is a requirement. You just have to bring it.
Yep. For every other course that I teach, and for sustainment trainings and stuff like that, people can run whatever optic they prefer, and they should just know how their optic functions. If it's an LPVO or a magnified or a prism that has a built-in reticle, you should know how to read that reticle, what the stadia lines mean, all that. And I can answer questions, but that's like a shooter's responsibility.
And what about muzzle devices? What do you think about suppressors on an AR-15?
Or muzzle brakes.
Or muzzle brakes, or whatever else? What is your opinion on that? Should people buy it straight away? We have this. It's very common. Somebody's buying a rifle, and straight away they want to put a suppressor on it, and even not buy a rifle, even get something from other countries, any help, like FN files, for example, or M14s, or anything else. Yeah, and straight away we see in social media and people writing to us in private messages how can I put in a suppressor on an FN fault?
Yeah.
Because suppressors are really cheap here. You can find inexpensive
I
one.
love it.
And it's easy to buy.
I love it.
Yeah, because in US you have this
man.
all the licensing and
These
limitations.
draconian laws.
Yeah. Talking about laws, we have to talk about that as well.
We should.
We should. Yeah. But what do you think about that?
My recommendation for like a new shooter would be, do not buy a suppressor right away. Shoot your weapon. Learn how your weapon functions. More specifically, where your rounds impact with just a flash hider or whatever muzzle brake you choose to put on there. And then realize that when you put a suppressor on there, you likely have to change your gas settings, and that round is carrying less velocity. This serves a specific purpose, and like everything with weapons, I think that like guns should be purpose-built.
For a specific task. Basically.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
And what do you think about muzzle brakes, especially the ones which used for competitions, which reduce recoil, but which make a sound?
Everyone else
deaf.
hate you.
Yeah, the guy shooting you left and right. Yeah.
They hate you. Yeah. It's probably not a thing for a military service, isn't it? Or what do you think about that?
So that's a hard question to answer. I don't really have any like personal thoughts on muzzle brakes. I don't hate them or love them. I think that you don't need a muzzle brake to be an accurate shooter. The reduction in recoil that you get is certainly nice, but you can also achieve that by building a stronger shooting position. But if you like running a muzzle brake, awesome. If you're in a gunfight where speed and silence are not your main priorities, that extra thump can have a psychological impact. But yeah, maybe the guy to the left and right of you on the range don't like getting blasted to the side.
Yeah.
Personal preference, I think.
Okay, understood. And what about calibers? Because we have this here for a reason.
Yeah.
You know that in Ukraine, 9mm is 9x19 is basically a specialized cartridge, so it's not something a civilian can own, buy. Yeah. So
that's a problem.
So all the PCCs for civilian people are basically in 921, which is you're probably familiar with that round. Yeah, it's basically 9x19, but a different one, so you can own it like as a civilian,
right.
And you can buy yourself a carbine like this, for example. And what do you think about these? Do you think there is a place for them in terms of basic training, especially for those who are not, planning to go in the military straight away, but they want to, get some training, understand how to operate this sort of rifle, and but it's a lot cheaper to shoot, even comparing to 2 to 3 is still not the most expensive cartridge, but still it's more expensive than 9x21.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Is this a good decision or not, in your opinion?
So since we're just asking my opinion, I think there's a place for a small caliber carbine. There's a lot of nuance to answering this question, because let's address people who aren't planning on joining the military. Well, you probably should. Not join the military, but you should plan on it if the need arises. And so with that in mind, and the uncertainty of the situation that we're in, I would want the weapon that I train on to matches closely the weapons that I would be using in a combat situation every day of the week. It's less expensive, and there's less recoil on a small caliber carbine AR, which has some training benefit, but I would say the difference in the effect of the recoil is actually it's part of the psychological thing that you have to overcome on your journey to becoming a proficient shooter. So you're kind of losing the opportunity to figure out how to manage that larger caliber and how it feels. I think there's a place for, like I said, small calibers. Maybe if it's a smaller sized weapon for concealability, potentially for home defense if you have the right type of round in the weapon. But generally speaking, I just think there are better tools for the same job. The main benefit to this is you're going to save a little bit of money. My recommendation for a new shooter buying a weapon would be just to go straight to 5.56, and if you need, find somebody who can teach you how to operate it and talk you through like the nuances of that caliber.
Yeah, and this is what we see like for the last couple of years basically, is that in our shops we sell the most selling type of weapon for all these years is AR-15 right now.
Yes. But in terms of recoil, you should start with a shotgun. Yeah. And then everything will be
50 caliber.
Yes, and everything will be light.
Where to, you know, put his shotgun in.
That's right.
Yeah, in the conversation. Let's talk about shotguns.
Yes.
Let's go.
No,
Finally.
we're not gonna talk about shotguns.
But we have them here.
Okay, at least we have it on the wall.
And especially now, when there are a lot of FPV drones, we receive a lot of questions about shotguns and how to use them against the FPVs.
Any experience with that for you?
Shooting drones with shotguns?
Yes.
No.
Shooting drones with anything. Any experience with drones, maybe?
Yeah, I have quite a bit of experience with drones, mostly just being chased by them, which is
FPVs or
reconnaissance drones.
okay.
So yeah, it's not fun. Had some guys like try to shoot the drone, and that, you know, it's a difficult task and didn't work in our situation with the 5.56 caliber weapons we had. But a shotgun could be your right option. Is also, I would say, a crucial tool if you're manning a trench or conducting urban operations.
You make him feel not happy now.
I'm happy, yes.
The shotgun still has its place in modern warfare.
And what type of
Feels nice,
ammunition?
isn't it?
Buckshot?
Yeah, for sure, buckshot, yeah.
Buckshot, yeah. For everything, basically. Like a universal tool.
Right.
Yeah?
I mean, 12, 20 gauge, it'll work on a person, it'll work on a drone.
What sort of buckshot? Like in terms of, like in numbers?
Yeah.
Do you know them in numbers?
I
Or
don't.
Let's
I'm
talk.
not that...
Are you a hunter yourself? Have you
I've
ever
hunted before.
You hunted before. So your shooting started with hunting, or?
Actually, my shooting started when I was like 7 or 8 years old on a... actually, it was a bolt-action rifle.
Okay.
And then 22 long rifle caliber ARs.
So not shotguns, not birds.
No.
Not that sort of thing.
No.
Because one thing is to talk about buckshot in terms of like numbers, yeah, and another thing you can talk about the type of animal you can, because it depends what sort of buckshot you use.
Totally.
You would use different things even for different birds,
Yeah.
And this is the debate we have all the time in terms of what to use against the drones. Because the types of ammo, like the buckshots, is so many of them, and people argue all the time. It's better to go for bigger pellets but less of them, or smaller pellets but more of them.
Or choose birdshot.
Or choose like for very small birds, which is like lots of pellets, but they are weak.
Without having a ton of without having any experience with it, my initial kind of thought would be I would select a birdshot with a tighter spread and lots of little pellets, because you only need to hit that drone with one of the little pellets.
Well, we did some experiments with that.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
we did, and we've been shooting like reconnaissance drones from up to 100 meters.
And FPV drones.
And we tried with FPV
Nice.
drones. We shot a lot at paper with basically drones there. Yeah, just to see the spread and what are the chances of hitting it. And this is the conclusion we have right now. It's not final, because
what works better?
basically we came to the conclusion that you're right.
Birdshot works better.
Birdshot, more pellets. Yes, they are smaller, but just the chances of hitting it are higher. But also there is a problem of enough kinetic energy and hitting something which is actually
Critical to
to it, and there are not many things like that on an FPV, for example.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah,
A couple of propellers.
It's a strong thing actually.
Yeah.
And also the guys who provided us with an FPV after our tests, they said, "Oh, we looked at the damage you've done with the shotgun, and we know where to reinforce it a bit, just a bit, because you don't need much. You just need to add some thickness here and there, and that's it. We will eliminate like the weak places, and it will not go down again if you shoot it the same way." So it's a big sort of question right now what to do with FPVs and everything else, but this is also a separate topic.
And what do you think about FPVs? Do you think that it's a temporary thing, or that it will be implemented by all the armies in the world? What do you think?
I think we're witnessing a permanent shift in the way that we conduct warfare. I think FPVs will continue to be a part of future conflicts, and this one. I don't think drone usage is going anywhere. If anything, it'll become more and more developed, especially like more and more like artificial intelligence and use of robotics. I think that's the natural progression. But that's not to say that there won't always be a place for a guy with a gun on the ground.
That's a huge debate for quite a while now, is that
snipers against FPVs.
Drones will replace snipers. For me, this debate is a bit, I don't understand, the logic behind it.
Yeah.
Because Anton is a precision shooter and he loves sniper rifles.
Same.
Not for these reasons. It's just strange for me when, they like a couple of times they tried to bury tanks now, like saying that's it, they're obsolete. There's no place for a tank, they're gone. And then suddenly, well, actually not.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, they have their limitations, but they're still there and it's valuable. Yeah. And the same applies to, but we have this discussion all the time because of the amount of money collected from the public, for different causes. And we have a project, for example, with, in other parts of Ukrainian society and, special people and funds and everything else about sniper rifles. Not even rifles, but the team equipped with the rifle and lots of other things.
Yeah.
And when we launched this, on our channel and our social media and been talking about it and explaining what it consists of and why is it so expensive and the amount of money that has to be collected in order for the whole thing to work, And you have lots of comments like, why are you doing this? This is stupid. For this amount of money, you could buy so much FPV drones, enter, and that's it. You're wasting our money. That sort of thing we get from the public as well.
Yeah.
So this is a big debate. And what is your opinion on, is there a place for a marksman, a sniper on the battlefield, even with FPV drones?
Yeah. Make no mistake, snipers are not going anywhere. There's absolutely still a place for the long-range shooter on the battlefield. Think about the FPV like a one round of ammunition. Once, however much money you spent on that, once it drops, it blows up. If you effect a kill, what do you get? Like 1, 2, 3 if it was a really good FPV opportunity. That's more expensive, say, to outfit a sniper team. But, one round of ammunition costs you $3, $4, depending on how.
For a Magnum, even.
338,
yeah.
So you're getting more effects on your target for your money with a precision shooter. And also there's a whole lot that the sniper does not involved in shooting, is gathering information about the battlefield, enemy disposition. This is intelligence that you maybe can't gather with a drone, reconnaissance drone or otherwise. That could serve very valuable at like the battalion level. So, and like I conducted a year's worth of sniper work with the Legion, and sure, we got harassed by drones, but there are a lot of different ways of defeating drone technology and still being able to have an effect on your enemy. So.
Okay, so bolt action snipers and marksmen are not going anywhere.
No, man. No.
You are happy.
That's good. That's good. That's good news.
Yeah.
That's good news. But yeah,
Let's go back to our
M15?
rifles. Yes.
Okay.
We need to choose. We want to ask you to teach us some basic tactical shooting on a range next time.
Yeah.
And we want to choose the rifle and setup and equipment for it. So
I mean, our plan is that basically you will equip us with whatever we have in our shops. Of course, that would be, strange if we didn't use this opportunity to sell you something. But we would start with rifle, and basically we have like the go-to rifle.
Yeah.
Right now, the go-to in terms of this is the cheapest rifle we have right now.
Okay.
And this is not the. We actually have to talk about your safety thing and everything else. Yeah.
You want to talk about that right now?
Just for a quick moment, so everyone understands. This thing. What Zulu told us before we started filming, he looked at the rifles we brought in, and he said, "Can I change something before we start?" And he took every single.
They were all on fire.
Yeah, they were all on fire. Yeah.
So I never saw this until I came to Ukraine and realized that this is something that's culturally ingrained in like the military society as well as like the civilian sector, and it's a holdover. This is what I've been told, that it's a holdover from Soviet doctrine, which is when you clear your weapon, you ensure that it's empty, then you press the trigger, and this is how you know that the weapon is clear and safe. The only problem with that is that
you actually don't know.
You actually don't know. What you do know is that it's on fire, but now that I've pulled the trigger, I can't select safe again until I've put the hammer back into battery. So U.S. military, there are 4 weapons conditions for this rifle, and all of those weapons conditions explicitly states that the rifle is on safe. So when I approach this weapon, I don't know anything about it other than it's on safe, and so there's a psychological thing there. Obviously, I'm not going to pick the rifle up and just stick my finger in the trigger guard. But first thing I'm going to do is inspect the chamber to make sure that it's empty. It's empty and it's on safe. We're good to go. What I've been told is that Soviet doctrine was with the AK that you put it on fire, press the trigger to relieve the hammer spring tension because you're worried about it losing its springiness over time. That's not true for the AK, and it's certainly not true for the AR. So this is the proper condition for the weapon to be in, not only when I'm carrying it on the range, but when it's being stored in my gun bag or in my safe at home. My weapon's on safe. The only time my weapon goes off safe is when I'm shooting, and when I stop shooting or I get up to move, I put my weapon back on safe.
Even with, say, if you're moving with a round in the chamber.
Correct.
You're on safe.
Especially if I'm moving with a round in the chamber.
Always on safe, and once you have to shoot,
you
put it in fire mode.
Yep.
Okay, and just quickly, what sort of, talking about military, not civilian, of course, automatic fire or single? What is where would you be like most of the time?
Semi-automatic. Single
shots.
Automatic fire is great for initiating contact or breaking contact. You can put a lot of rounds down in that direction. If I'm in a squad, say, moving through an area, we take contact. The point man would lay down automatic fire right away to allow the rest of the team time to build a base of fire from which you would maneuver on the enemy position. But after that, the shots don't count, the hits count. So you're more accurate, you're conserving your ammunition, and you're having a greater psychological effect on the enemy when all your shots are hitting what you intend for it to do. One of the things about this conflict that's different than others, I would say, is that suppressive fire doesn't really suppress. So if guys are not scared of rounds coming past their head for the most part, Ukrainians or Russians.
Why do you think is the?
Because we're actually out here to kill each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In previous conflicts, even the war in Afghanistan, you'd see, like, obviously we're out there to do our job, but there's like there's not as high of a level of involvement or investment or commitment here. And I think everybody, Ukrainians certainly understand, like, hey, if I'm not killing that Russian, then, he's gonna kill me.
Oh,
So it's not about keeping their heads
That's an interesting
down.
point, actually. Never thought about
And
that.
another question about use of high-capacity magazines, for example, 40-round Magpul magazines or 50-round drums. What do you think about them?
I don't use them. I find like a 50-round drum affects how that weapon feels in my hand.
Too
not
heavy.
a huge, too heavy, off balances the rifle to a degree. So I'm just not a huge fan there. And then like the 40-round magazines, they're just really long.
Yes.
And so like to have them on my kit, it's bigger than I need it to be. I'd rather carry, and I usually carry like 3 weapons on me, so like an AR, a pistol, and a long rifle. And so I don't need a ton of ammo capacity for my secondary weapon. So
And
usually, like,
shooter's profile is higher when you're shooting from the prone. Yes.
if you're using the magazine as a support for the weapon, then yeah, definitely you're higher off the ground.
So you said you carry a carbine with you and a bolt action.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
heavy. It's heavy, but
We will talk about that, but let's come back to this. So basically, we want to choose something you will start teaching us with.
Yeah.
Yeah? Is this all right?
yeah.
What can you say about this rifle? For example, it's the first time you're holding it in your hands, basically. It's LSA Grunt. I don't know, have you seen them before?
I have not seen the LSA.
This is what we sell right now, mostly. This is our cheapest offering in AR-15 range. Actually, we have so many AR-15s, we started a separate website with all the AR-15s we have.
Yeah,
And you have the link to this?
I
Yeah.
do. I've seen it.
And we have a division in terms of budget, because the amount you pay is, it's very important in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And since everything which is coming from US or whatever else, in terms of price, it becomes at least twice as more expensive, or usually more. So this is like one of the cheapest rifles you can get in US, but in Ukraine it's already twice as much, even more than that. So what is your opinion of it? First impressions, just trying it out.
Yeah. First impression, I like how tactile the grip is. Like, this rubber is pretty like sticky. So if you were running this without gloves, you wouldn't lose your grip. I like that. The things, I'll just walk you through, I guess, the things that I look at on the rifle, like aesthetically, but they all serve a practical purpose.
Yeah, just
as
tell
well.
us what do you think is important in choosing a rifle. Yeah.
One of my biggest things, the first thing that I look at is like length of the handguard in relation to the barrel.
Okay.
I don't know why companies are still putting rifles out that have 15 centimeters of barrel that stick out beyond the rail.
Yeah.
When I'm holding this rifle, I want to get my hand out on that rifle as far as possible. So if the barrel's this long, I like to be able to put my hand out to here or out to here.
By the way, barrel length-wise,
Yeah.
this is 16 inches.
Yep.
Cold behind you is the traditional 14 and a half.
Yeah.
And we have lots of people going for 12.5. Some
And
of them
even less.
want 10 inches, and sometimes we hear about people wanting like 7 and getting there below even 10. What's your opinion on that?
Rifles are purpose built. So what are you going to use the rifle for?
But safe, for the common rifle, let's
Yeah.
call it that.
Yeah.
What it should be, 16 inches?
I 16 you can't go wrong with. 14 would be the smallest I would go for a general
14 and a
purpose
half.
rifle.
So general purpose, 14, 16.
14 and a half to 16,
Fine.
18 to 20.
Anything which is longer or shorter is a specialized thing.
Yeah. So if I was, like I said, carrying 2 weapons or primarily doing hard structure work, I would.
Sorry, what is hard structure work?
It's like urban warfare,
Okay.
CQB stuff
Yeah,
like that.
understood.
14 inches would probably still be what I went with because I can manipulate and maneuver a 14-inch barrel around pretty much anything. But if you wanted to go shorter, you get a little bit of weight saving. 10 and a half, 12, also good options.
12 inches barrels are really popular among people who use them in cars, medics, and everything.
Yes. If you're vehicle mounted, that's the other thing I should have mentioned. If you're in a vehicle, the shorter the barrel, it's your friend.
Yeah, your friend.
Yeah.
Not getting stuck anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Okay. So let's come back to this. The forend,
Yeah.
you said the length of the forend, yeah?
Yep. So, the length of the rail in relation to the barrel.
Yeah.
One thing I look at is the stock, and stocks are easy to replace. So if you don't like the stock, you can get another one. I like to have this slit right here because I run my sling over the top. I see a lot of guys run their sling through this slit right here.
Yeah, QDs.
And there's
Not using QDs, you mean?
I don't use QDs because QDs make, at least on this part, QDs make a lot of noise, and they can restrict your adjustability or where the sling sits on the weapon.
Okay.
When I mount the sling on the stock, I don't want it to move around. So when it's here, sometimes you can get caught up across the back of the buttstock. I like to keep this area as clean as possible to interface with my body. So I go through this slit over the top of the buttstock, right where your cheek rests. And then the other thing is can I manipulate the charging handle over the top of this stock? I think on one of these, you get a little bit of catch. I don't know if it was that one but you just see some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Where the clearance between the upper receiver part here sits a little bit higher to clear this lip on the polymer stock.
So is this stock good for?
Good enough, totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah?
In general, I think this is a really decent starter rifle. If you were gonna buy a first
in
rifle.
terms of the things you have on it already, because that's one of the big choices. Basically, here you get quite a good stock and handle and everything else. And for example, Colt you have behind you, it has a traditional the handle. What do you think?
Actually, I hate that pistol grip.
Everyone does.
So here's the thing: I like the way that this pistol grip feels.
Yeah.
If I bought this rifle and made one change to it right away, it would be the grip. However, I prefer a grip that comes more straight down, so you get more of a 90-degree angle of pull rather than having your hand at
So basically, for an AR-15, it's very hard to. Considering how many choices people have,
Yes.
it's very hard to get it
just right.
just right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter what it has from the shelf because you will probably still.
And maybe other people don't have that same preference that I have.
And they will change it to something else.
Later on. To get you started, I think this is great.
Yeah,
One of my other things that I look for is the composition of this handrail. In general, I'm not a huge fan of mixing Picatinny with M-lock attachments.
On the top?
Yeah, just because I like, if I need to be able to take things off of one rifle and put it onto another. M-lock is great, but it's not quite as prolific as Picatinny. So you'll have a separate kind of accessory attachments for your M-lock railed rifle, and then you have to have a whole separate thing if you have another rifle that has Picatinny. What I do like right there is that mix. I like Picatinny on top, and then you can keep the sides clean with this M-lock.
Okay.
But generally speaking, I think this would be a great first rifle.
What about, people worry a lot about the barrel material, what it's made, what the steel type. Is it, does it have any protection coating inside or not? For example, again, the Colt over there, it's the only offering we have with actually, it's basically a military rifle without the automatic fire. So it has the chamber and the barrel, it's chrome lined. And these are all, all other rifles we have, they're basically, they have no chrome at all.
Yeah.
It's just some kind of coating, but not chromed. What do you think about that?
I think when I was buying my first car, people would have thought that it was crazy if I was like, oh, I need it to be a Porsche with, reinforced pistons, and it's like, you don't even know how to drive. So all the fancy extra stuff, I wouldn't worry about it. I think the biggest thing, to get political, the biggest thing is that you should just get a rifle, and you'll learn what you like, what you don't like, get nicer attachments for that rifle or a whole other nicer rifle later on down the road. But when your government is telling you that you shouldn't own a rifle, you probably should. Don't let the chrome-lined barrel be the thing that stops you from buying your first AR.
And what about twist of the rifle? Is there any difference, or you should just choose the rifle, budget rifle with any twist?
I wouldn't be, again, on a first AR, I wouldn't be worried about barrel twist rate. Additionally, when we're talking like 5.56 rifles, it doesn't make as big of a difference because you're limited by the max effective range of that round. Now, if we were shooting 308 or 338, to minimize variance in your dispersion at distance, there are certain twist rates that are more ideal than others. But again, like I said, I wouldn't worry about it on your first AR. And then if you end up shooting this barrel out, which you need 10, 20,000 rounds to actually like ruin your barrel and replace it, then you can always put a nicer barrel in later. And it's cheaper than replacing your whole rifle.
Another question about the sling. When the full-scale invasion started, one of the hardest things to find was a sling, because a lot of people bought rifles, but no slings because they used them only on a range. But for military use, you cannot hold your rifle all the time in your hands. So for a combat rifle, which sling can you recommend? Is it the must-have?
Yes, it is a must-have. I would never buy, if I didn't already have like a selection at home of slings that I like, I would never buy a rifle without a sling. I think there's 3 or 4 pieces of essential accessories that you need to buy with your rifle. First are some mechanical sights. You can worry about the collimator later if you have the money for a collimator right away. Get a simple red dot. So mechanical sights, a sling, and you obviously need magazines for your
ammunition.
ammunition.
How many magazines for starters?
To start, bare minimum, like 3 or 4.
3 or 4. What else?
Yeah, so recommendations for slings, and I've run 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. There's only one type of sling that I will run after years of running these different slings and figuring out what I loved and hated about each one. I will only ever buy 2-point slings with a slider feature so that you can quickly take up or reduce tension in that sling system. The reason a sling is a must-have is because from the standing, it's difficult to build as stable of a shooting position as you would want for some longer range shots. Your sling is a critical piece of kit to allow you to tighten that shooting position down and be more accurate. So slings. Magpul makes a decent slider sling. I know you guys carry that.
Yes.
The Faro Concepts Slingster, I've seen here in Ukraine, seems to be a pretty popular sling for guys that spend for that kind of gear. I have a sling. It's from a company called Arbor Arms, online arborarms.com. It's called the Direct Action Slider, and it's the best sling that I've ever owned.
Is it sold in Ukraine at all? Do you know?
I don't think so. I don't think that they have representation here, but you can always order it from the website and it'll get shipped here. Absolutely love that sling. When I buy gear, I've pretty much had to modify every piece of gear that I've bought. This sling is flawless, in my opinion. There's nothing about it that I don't like.
So basically a 2-point with the ability to...
With the slider function.
With the slider function.
Yeah, and I mount, I like mounting the forward end of the sling right here, so it clears up this whole rail up front for my hand. Usually do that with a quick detachment, and then I'll run just the tail of the loop through the back of the buttstock over the top here, really tighten it down and then double it back across itself so it never slips, but so that it comes out from this direction over to the other side of the rifle. Helps it sit flush against my body and then doesn't interfere with me interfacing in my shoulder.
So next time we are going to have iron sights,
so
sling,
yeah,
and 3 magazines.
You will have to pick things for us.
Perfect.
So basically we have, these rifles are fine to start with.
Totally,
yeah?
totally.
And we will start with open sights. We should not bring even a red dot with us for the first training. Yeah.
You could bring a red dot with you, but I run red dots, but I always have a pair of backup pop-up sights. I like Magpuls, like just the polymer ones. They're not bull, and they just live on the rifle. And so, like, if the collimator ever breaks, because for whatever reason my rifle fell, or if the batteries die and I just don't have other batteries, I can always deploy my pop-up iron sights.
And do you start training with a zeroing rifle, or rifle should be zeroed before training?
So when folks come to the fundamentals of marksmanship course that I teach, we go through how to zero your rifle.
So you teach them how to zero first.
Yep.
Which makes sense. So
Yep.
they can do it themselves.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
We zero iron sights and collimators.
okay. And what distance do you zero them? What's your? I assume 25. You go with the 25 yards, and that's the traditional way, or
No,
not?
actually 23 or was it 26.2 meters? I think,
Oh,
or
okay.
23.2 meters is 25 yards. So I still use the 25-300 zero, but I just do it in metric.
In metric.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Because there's still nice coincidence between the impacts of the
yeah, it
rounds at
sort
those
of
distance.
works.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what do you think about 45-degree iron sights as a backup?
That's actually a really good question. I don't like 45 degree. I don't like offset anything because it reduces the stability of the interface with that rifle. So when you turn it, you have less buttstock in your shoulder. I know it works for a lot of guys. The thing with that is I see it on a lot of weapons that guys have chosen to mount an LPVO.
Yeah.
And we could talk about...
We haven't talked about it yet, so
Yeah.
we can talk about that as well.
So LPVOs on your weapon.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you putting an LPVO on your weapon? If it's to serve a purpose, then cool. But a lot of guys just go for the LPVO because they think like having that extra magnification is going to make them a better shooter. The problem with an LPVO is that it reduces your situational awareness when you're shooting. You're pulled down that tube.
Even if it has like the true, one magnification where you can use both of your eyes and it's very close to, especially if it's a good one, like this one, for example.
You have to have really good fundamentals as a shooter.
So it takes more training to...
Because every time you need to hit that that ocular lens in a way that you don't get any kind of scope shadow. So it can still be very difficult to acquire that reticle under duress. Whereas a red dot, even if you're slightly misaligned with your sight, you're always going to pick it up.
And what about the Trigicons?
The ACOGs?
Yeah, the ACOGs, yeah.
I like the ACOG.
You like them. But it has the sort of...
same effect.
The same effect. And
Yep.
It's an LPVO in a sense,
It was
but it doesn't
the first
have
iteration.
It doesn't have the magnification of 1 even. Yeah, it's
Look,
usually a
it's
lot more.
fixed. Yeah, it's fixed 3
thing.
or 4.
Like this
yeah.
one from Prime.
Yeah, like for example, this is a good example as well. So what
Yeah,
about
this is a
those?
prism optic. So like, don't get me wrong, I like LPVOs too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But it's like, what's the purpose? Like, what is it designed?
So
what are
it's
you
just
using the
not
rifle
a
for?
thing for a newbie to start with.
Probably
not.
not my recommendation. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, learn to shoot well with mechanical sights and just a red dot collimator, and then if you have a rifle where you want to do more like scouting work or maybe like more accurate mid-range shooting, LPVO is a great optic to do that with. But for like combat shooting, for close quarter shooting, for like just general engagement stuff, I think the LPVO is a little bit limiting, and I feel like it's a good option, but guys pick it for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
So they are not for everyone. So you need to choose sites for a mission.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So we agreed on the rifle. Yeah, and then that's what we're gonna do. Probably next time we're gonna be filming is gonna be at the range, and since we're not experienced in doing stuff wearing like body armor, helmets, and everything else. So we have a limited selection of those, so you will have to choose something for us as well. But that's what the question I wanted to ask. Basically, you have a lot of people coming for training. Do you train them only wearing body armor and everything else, or you also train like in civilian clothing? What's your take on that? Should people train wearing everything? Because it's a lot, it makes a lot of difference depending how even the length of pull and everything else. What is your take on that?
If you own it, wear it.
Okay.
Train how you fight. Not everybody comes to my courses owning their own body armor. So like, it's fine if they show up with like an H harness or like a load bearing kit. It's like, we'll make do with what you have. But the second you buy a plate carrier, that's how you should be training to shoot, especially like now in a war.
Okay.
Back home, you want to go to the range and practice, accurate shooting, like fixed distance on a flat range, no movement. Like, fine, don't wear your body armor. But if I own it, I'm going to train wearing it.
And for the next time, do we need set of equipment like body armor, helmet, and some kind of pouches?
Ideally, yes.
Yeah. It depends on like how realistic with the training you want to get.
We want to replicate basically what you do.
Sure.
And we are a good, I think, starting sort of base for this, because we really have no real experience in doing this with body armor. He has a lot more experience in terms of practical shooting with the shotgun and a bit with the carbine, pistol carbine. I myself have almost no experience in that, only precision, bolt action, that sort of thing. So
you mentioned length of pull.
Yeah,
that's actually a big thing, especially when it comes to precision shooting, wearing body armor.
Yeah, that's my next question was, how do you do that in terms of like bolt action and wearing everything, because it changes so many things.
I will have adjustments marked, or like known adjustments for like comb height or length of pull when I'm wearing body armor
and not wearing,
so that if, and this does happen, if I'm in a shooting position for an extended period of time, I'll take my helmet off. Sometimes I'll take my plate carrier off to be more comfortable behind the gun, because you're on glass for 8 hours. Like, it gets really uncomfortable wearing all that stuff. And then you take it all off, and all of a sudden you're too far up on your.
Yeah, we have lots of things we would like to ask you, talk about, and there are so many things,
and
really.
Especially to learn from you on the range.
But of course we cannot do it all like in one single video right now.
Yeah.
But I still have lots of questions. But anyway, so let's decide that what we're gonna do for the next video. And the next video is gonna be a range video. So we will be students, and Zulu will be basically giving us his, like, your typical training basic training you would do for anyone else.
Right on.
By the way, how many rounds do we need?
So you have to give us like what we should take with us.
Yep.
how many rounds. And I think off the camera you will probably just look, when you have time, you will look at the website and basically pick things for us. We agreed on the only on the rifle, and the rest will be just up to you what we should have with us. But just quickly, rifle, you said 3 mags.
Rifle, 3 magazines, a sling, mechanical sights, red dot if you want to shoot with one.
Okay.
Body armor, helmet, ear protection, eye protection, gloves, 200 rounds of ammunition.
What kind of ammunition? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, 5.56 basic.
Basic 55 grain, fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What else?
That should get us started at least.
What about clothing? What sort of, boots, special, any things you would recommend yourself, or?
Yeah. You don't need anything like super special, to be honest. You could pull it off in flip-flops if you wanted to, but...
Flip-flops. That's not the season for flip-flops.
No.
Yeah.
Tactical flip-flops.
Tactical flip-flops.
Tacticrocs.
Yeah, what about tactical kilts? Have you seen those as well?
I have seen them,
But probably no, we're not going to
Never worn one, but...
Never worn one. What, we can always start. But okay, what about clothing?
Comfortable clothing.
Doesn't matter what it's...
You could wear jeans. You could wear military utilities, closed-toed shoes. So, like, if you've got access to boots,
we have lots of boots.
Yeah, I think you do.
You can choose boots for us as well. Choose everything for us.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Boots.
Knee
make
pad.
you look tactical and cool.
Knee pads, elbow
knee
pads.
What about knee pads?
That's interesting. No one ever asks me about knee pads.
But knees hurt.
Yeah. I have a pair. I have a pair of really, really nice knee pads. The thing with knee pads, I've never owned knee pads that were always comfortable. They always slide down on your leg, or they always bunch up behind your knee, and long you either end up continuously adjusting them, or you're just
throwing
really
them away.
Yeah, or you're just really uncomfortable.
And what about pants with knee pads integrated?
Yes, those can be a good option. You have 2 types. So you have ones that go inside of a pouch and there's still fabric on the outside, or you have the cry style where they protrude out the front.
Yeah.
I've seen, I don't know if guys have had issues with legit cry. I'd suspect that to some degree this issue exists with these, as they do with we'll say copied versions of that design. But a lot of times the Velcro inside there doesn't really hold the knee pad in place, and you'll get the black part that sits underneath the knee cap kind of protrude out of the opening. Good option. They live in the pants, and they're way more comfortable than knee pads with a strap.
But do you think knee pads are actually needed?
You don't need them for
for first training. No.
We'll have you shoot from the knee, but I mean, 1 or 2 times you should be okay.
Okay, fine.
And what distance do we need for the range?
If we have 100 meters, that'd be cool.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the minimum for your training is what?
25.
25.
Yeah.
Okay.
15. We could go 15.
No, I mean we will probably work it out, but it's just interesting to know what's sort of the minimum and how do you train. So okay, that's the plan for the next one.
Right on.
I assume that we don't have much time because you have to go for a little tourist.
Yeah, not for a minute, but eventually.
So basically it's going to probably come quite quickly after this video. So you can expect it to be, quite quick. We hope so. So anyway, any other questions, or we can wrap it up for today?
It was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to training.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for your time, and again, thank you for coming to Ukraine, and thank you for your time and answering all those questions, and we have a lot more, and hopefully we will have a chance to talk more, after our first range day. After that, we will probably plans for the third video is going to be again like a podcast and talking about, you know, what you experienced with us and what was our experience and so on and so forth. And
Maybe after second video you wouldn't want to make a third one.
maybe Zulu would
No,
not
I'll
want to
be
do
nice.
that.
I'll be nice. I promise.
Okay, fine. So thanks a lot, man,
Thank
and see you on the range, basically.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
See you.